Hello, I'm Wind. Welcome to Mystic Echoes, where the past doesn't whisper, it wails. Today is March 7th, 2025, and the world is buzzing with anticipation for tomorrow, International Women's Day. A day of flowers, of cheers, of vows for a brighter future. But hold your breath. Tighten your grip. Because I'm about to tear you from that celebration and hurl you back to 1918, into the steamy, shadowed streets of New Orleans. There, a fiend with an axe in his fist turned a woman's day into a requiem of ruin. They called him the Axeman, a butcher who didn't just slaughter, but shredded the dreams of women who stood tall. He left blood, wilted roses, and a curse that still claws at the night. Don't turn away. Don't dare switch off the lights. In Mystic Echoes tonight, we're not just telling a story, we're staring into the eyes of a devil. Are you ready to face him? New Orleans, May 1918. The city's a cauldron of heat, sin, and sound. Jazz spills from every corner, saxophones wailing, trumpets crying, mixing with the chatter of dock workers and the clink of whiskey glasses. It's a place where dreams come to dance, or die. On a quiet street in the Italian Quarter, Catherine Maggio locks her bakery door for the night. She's 32, tough as nails, with hands calloused from kneading dough and a laugh that fills the room. She's a widow now, running the shop alone since her husband passed, a woman who's fought tooth and nail to keep her piece of the American dream. She hums a tune as she climbs the stairs to her apartment above, her shadow flickering in the gaslight. She doesn't know it, but she's being watched. The next morning, her brother-in-law, Joseph Maggio, stumbles into the apartment. The air's thick with copper and silence. He finds Catherine first, or what's left of her. Her head's gone, hacked clean off, lying 3 feet away with eyes still wide in terror. Blood paints the walls like a grotesque mural, pooling under the bed where her throat was slit before the axe came down. Joseph's there too, her tenant, his skull split open, but it's Catherine's body that tells the story. The killer lingered with her, took his time. A rusted axe, stolen from the bakery below, sits propped against the wall, its blade still wet. And on the nightstand? A single red rose wilted, thorns dripping crimson. A sick tribute to her strength, or a taunt. That was just the beginning. Over the next year, the axeman carved a bloody path through New Orleans, 6 dead, maybe more, mostly women. Italian women, working women, women who dared to stand tall in a city that chewed up the weak. He slipped through locked doors like smoke, left bodies in pieces, and vanished into the swampy night. The police called it random. The papers called it madness. But there was a pattern, a hatred, a hunger focused on women who refused to bow. August 1918. The city's on edge. 3 more attacks. Sarah Lawman, 19, a seamstress, her face cleaved in 2, Mary Schneider, 28, pregnant, her baby cut from her womb before she died, Rosie Cortamiglia, 25, left alive but shattered, her husband and toddler daughter hacked to bits beside her. Each scene's the same, an axe from the victim's own home, blood-soaked floors, and that damn rose red, rotting, mocking. The cops are scrambling, but the axeman? He's laughing. Then, on March 13, 1919, just days after what we now call International Women's Day, he ups the game. A letter arrives at the Times-Picayune newspaper, written in ink that smells faintly of rust. Esteemed mortals of New Orleans, I am no man, but a fiend from the hottest hell. I've taken your women, your bakers, your mothers, your dreamers, and I'll take more. You think your locks can stop me? Your prayers? I pass through walls, I drink your screams. But I'm a gentleman of taste. On Tuesday night, March 19th, I'll roam again. Play your jazz loud, wild, all night, and I'll spare you. Ignore me, and the streets will run red. Oh, And a note for your precious ladies, I see you on your day of pride. March 8th means nothing to me. Wear your roses if you dare, I'll leave mine in return. The city lost its mind. March 19th came, and every horn, every drum, every voice blared jazz till dawn. Saloons overflowed, houses shook with sound. And it worked, no one died. The Axeman kept his word. But here's the twist we're adding, because the truth isn't dark enough yet. That night, in a shack on the edge of the bayou, a woman named Eliza Dubois defied him. She was 40, a voodoo priestess who'd scoffed at the letter, called it a coward's bluff. She sat silent, no music, clutching a knife instead. At 3 a.m., her neighbors heard a shriek, then nothing. They found her at sunrise. The shack was a slaughterhouse, walls smeared with symbols no one could read, drawn in her blood. Her head was gone, her hands severed, nailed to the door like a warning. And in the center of the room, her heart sat on a tin plate, pierced by a rose stem, blackened, dripping, still beating faintly when they arrived. That's fiction, sure, but it fits the Axeman's style, grand, grotesque, unstoppable. After that night, the killings slowed, but the terror didn't. People swore they saw him, a tall figure in a black coat, axe gleaming under the moon, eyes glowing red through the fog. Others heard footsteps on their roofs, scratches at their windows. One girl, Anna Lowe, 26, survived an attack in October 1919, barely. She said he whispered to her as he swung, "You're not weak enough to live." Her jaw was shattered, but she lived to tell it. Then, just as suddenly as he'd come, he stopped. No more bodies, no more roses, at least, not that anyone found. The Axeman melted back into the swamp, or the shadows, or whatever hell spat him out. But the story doesn't end there. Let's twist the knife a little deeper. In 1920, a fisherman dredging the Mississippi snagged something heavy. He hauled it up, a burlap sack, soaked and stinking. Inside? Bones. Human bones, arms, legs, a skull with hair still clinging to it. And tangled in the mess, a dozen red roses, preserved like they'd been plucked yesterday. The cops hushed it up, but whispers spread, the Axeman wasn't gone. He'd just changed his game. Some say he's still out there, waiting for the jazz to stop, for the roses to bloom again. The Axeman was never caught. Theories piled up, a jilted lover, a mob hitman, a demon straight out of folklore. Elliot Ness chased leads years later, found nothing. The victims, Catherine, Sarah, Mary, Rosie, Eliza, faded into headlines, then footnotes. But they weren't just names. They were women, strong, stubborn, alive, until he decided they weren't. And that's where International Women's Day cuts deep. March 8th isn't just a pat on the back, it's a reckoning. The Axeman saw these women as prey because they dared to exist, to work, to fight. He turned their homes into tombs, their strength into a death sentence. In 1918, they had no marches, no hashtags, no voice loud enough to stop him. In 2025, we do, but are we using it? Every rose he left was a middle finger to their lives, a sick parody of the flowers we hand out on March 8th. Catherine baked bread for her neighbors. Mary carried a child. Eliza defied him with her silence. They deserved more than a butcher's blade. They deserved a world that fought back. So this year, when you pin that rose to your chest, ask yourself, who's still out there, swinging an axe in the dark? And what are we doing to stop them? That's the Axeman's Requiem, a song of blood, jazz, and women who wouldn't break until they did. Thanks for walking these haunted streets with me. Next time, we'll chase another shadow. Until then, keep your doors locked, your music loud, and your eyes open. For Catherine, for Eliza, for every woman he took, don't let the silence win. Good night, New Orleans.